What is going on, guys? So in this video, we are going to go over 6 beginner combat tips in Elden Ring. Now, if you are a newer player just getting into the Soul series, this game can be a rude awakening to your ego and make you think you are a bad player. It can be honestly ruthless at times, but believe me, you can learn these beginner tips with ease and apply them to your gameplay. It doesn't matter if you are a range caster, an avid katana user, or you like to bonk things on the head with a melee weapon. This video is for you. But before we get started, if you guys are enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe. It's free and you never miss an upload. Also, if you found this video helpful in any way, be sure to smash that like button. Without further ado, let's get into tip number 1. So for combat tip number 1, we have backstabs and how they are so very powerful. This is a simple and easy mechanic to take advantage of, especially in the early game. Most monsters and humans can be backstabbed. Now, obviously take into account that you can't backstab a 20-foot giant, but something of similar height and stature to your character. In order to do a backstab, simply get behind the enemy with a melee weapon equipped and input the light attack button while also not moving. Now, if you roll dodge to get into position, just wait about a half second or you will actually input a roll dodge attack, which obviously is not a backstab. So if you land this correctly, it will then play out an animation doing massive amount of critical damage to the enemy. While in this animation, you are also invulnerable to taking damage from other enemies. Most of the lower level enemies just swing their weapons around at will and have long recoveries, so you can easily slide behind them if you strafe their attack and then do a backstab on them. Another way to utilize backstab effectively is to utilize the new stealth mechanic. This will allow you to get in close and one-shot several enemies, so you can thin out the group so it's a little bit easier and you don't have to take on so many. So for combat tip number 2, this is utilizing the Shield Riposte. So similar to the backstab, the Shield Riposte is a very easy mechanic to do on most NPCs in Elden Ring. To input the Shield Riposte, go up to an enemy and hold block. Once their attack connects with your shield, input the heavy attack button. Doing this, you will hear a bell sound and your weapon will do a riposte attack. This attack can oftentimes stagger enemies, allowing you for even more follow-up damage. If you want to utilize this riposte as often as possible, I highly suggest you use a 100% block mitigation shield to physical attacks, so you do not take minor chip damage in melee range. In the early game, especially on a Vagabond or a Confessor class, using the shield will do wonders for you as you can play a little bit defensive while also being able to do good counterattack damage. So something of note, inside of the riposte animation when you're doing your counterattack, you do not have hyper armor. So if another NPC hits you with their sword, it could stop your attack from landing. But be careful and use it only when you know you can land it, as blocking the enemy's initial attack and doing the riposte can cost quite a bit of stamina and leave you in a bad spot. So for combat tip number 3, we have to talk about how powerful bleed damage is in Elden Ring. It is absolutely insane right now. So when I first started, I used a basic Lordsorn Greatsword that I found in Limgrave. It did the job. However, as soon as I upgraded to the Bloodhound Fang, my life got a whole lot easier. If you want to know how I got this weapon and the guide on the boss, I will link the video down in the description below. In my opinion, any weapon without the Blood Loss passive effect feels very underwhelming and kind of useless. Now, that's not to say you can't use a non-bleed weapon, but I just don't really recommend it as it makes the boss fight so much easier. So the next question you guys are going to have is, how do you tell if your weapon has the Blood Loss effect on it or not? So basically what you want to do is you want to go to your inventory and look at your weapons. On the very bottom of each weapon, you will see a description and it says passive effects. Under that, if it has bleed damage, it will say it causes blood loss buildup. And then it will have a number to the side of that. If you do not see it causes blood loss buildup, that weapon does not have the passive. All right, so very quickly, let me explain how the passive works. So every time you deal damage with that weapon, be it a jump attack, a light attack, or a heavy attack, it increases the enemy's blood loss buildup. This is an invisible meter to you that grows with every attack you do to the enemy with a bleed weapon. Once that meter gets full, it will do a massive amount of burst damage, at times hitting for thousands of damage to a boss. Now please understand that different enemies have different levels of resistances. So some enemies will take 2 or 3 hits, others may take upwards of 7 to 10 or even more than that. It all just depends. So for combat tip number 4, we're going to go over the mounted combat. Now, whether you are a mage using spells or a melee fighter using swords, the mounted combat in this game is very rewarding. Now, when Melina first gives you the horse, it can feel very clunky, but trust me, you'll want to learn this inside and out. It adds a whole new dynamic style of combat that feels like a different game in itself. This is very important to learn, as some of the bosses, especially in the open world, you are almost required to use the horse. So while on the horse using melee weapons, you have two different kinds of attacks, the light attacks and the heavy attacks. Pretty simple, but what is so awesome about this style of combat, if you press the right triggers like the R2 and R1, those come out on the right side of your horse, while if you press the L1 and the L2, those attacks come out on the left side of your horse, allowing for several different kinds of maneuverability you have on your horse while fighting enemies. Now what takes the mounted combat to the next level is utilizing spells and incantations while on the back of it. It can make quick work of several mobs and enemies that can be very annoying and frustrating, especially if you are playing in melee range. Another important aspect of the mounted combat, especially if you are a lower soul level in higher areas, utilizing this can make quick work of hard enemies, but they are an absolute breeze on the back of your steed. For combat tip number 5, it is all about spacing, and this is the key to success in Elden Ring. It is one of the most important aspects that you will learn throughout your playthrough. Keeping yourself out of harm's way from the boss or enemy NPC is how you survive. Giving yourself a safe distance to see what attacks are coming at you, and to do some range poke damage with some spells, or do a little bit of sniping with the bow, or just simply to observe what the boss's mechanics are and looking for your opportunity to strike. In short, this is how you play any Souls game. Pay attention to the boss's moveset and put yourself in the correct spacing to counterattack the boss's combo. It is best to play more passive until you understand what combos and attack chains the boss has, and then punish them while they are in recovery and then move back to a safe distance. After that, all you do is basically rinse and repeat. Some bosses and NPCs have a long attack range, others have some short ones. Just be sure to adjust your playstyle to the bosses you are fighting. And if you are unsure on how to approach an enemy, remember, keep a good safe distance and pay attention to their attacks and block or dodge accordingly. So for combat tip number 6, patience is a virtue. If this is your first Souls type of game, you're going to get very frustrated. You're going to get absolutely destroyed by the first boss. You're going to get killed by mobs. You're going to die to some of the dumbest things imaginable. And that is perfectly fine. It's all about the experience. But the worst thing you can do is get angry. Just be patient and learn from each death what you did wrong. And obviously, don't try to do that again. Every enemy in Elden Ring punishes inexperience. And the only way you can get experience is to fight a boss several times over and over and over again until you get it right. And honestly, there is really no better feeling in the world when you finally kill a boss that's been beating your butt for the past hour or two. Jump. No. Let's freaking go, dude. Oh my goodness gracious. And another side of being patient while actually in combat is oftentimes you get kind of ahead of yourself. You feel you're doing pretty well. You get a boss low, and what do? You start spamming your attacks to secure a kill, and the boss slaps you with a one-shot and you die. The main reason that is because you are overly eager and confident and not being patient. You finally understood the boss's moveset and attack patterns. Don't risk it all just to finally secure that kill. Just wait for your opportunity to strike. And that is really the best advice I can give you, is just be patient and wait for your opportunity. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope these tips and tricks can help you get started with the combat in Elden Ring. And if this video helped you in any way, be sure to smash that like button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.